I'm going to be teaching two courses here. One on organizational ethics, politics, and sustainability, which is about how to make it happen. How do you actually lead change towards sustainability? Once we have the cognitive acceptance that sustainability is important. And the second course I'm going to teach is even more nitty-gritty. It's negotiating and conflict resolution. So let me talk about the first one and then the second one. Now, the kind of work I do is basically about organizational ethics, politics, and political economy. Now, what that means in practice is I work with managers all over the world to try to help them solve problems of business ethics, public sector ethics, social responsibility, and corruption reform. And I do this work with the Norwegians and the Bank of Norway and the Peace Institute of Oslo, and they have a fantastic sustainability program, both economic, environmental, social. To Greece and Cyprus and the Balkans, to places like Pakistan and Indonesia. And the methods we need to use in these different kinds of realities are very different. The structural problems, although related to sustainability, all of them, are very different in terms of their foundational material realities and differences, and those differences have to be appreciated and dealt with. Let me say a little bit more about myself. My wife is Italian, from Florence. We've been married for 43 years, so maybe that says something about the practical applications of conflict resolution. So, we have a couple of daughters. One's a professor of theater, and the other a professor of the literature for children. So I'm going to, both from my work experiences and family, we'll try to bring something of a cross-cultural dimension to the courses we're looking at. All right, now, to talk a little bit about the first course, this organizational ethics, politics, and sustainability, how to lead change towards sustainability. All right, how do we do that? Well, it's going to be a methods course, and we're going to look at what can you actually do to make this happen. And some of the things we're going to look at are what are the different kinds of arguments you can use towards sustainability. And you might be surprised, but just talking about the obvious merits of sustainability will not do it. All right, we have to be able to talk about some of the other kinds of criteria. Things like the cost-benefit kinds of dimensions, some of the proportionality dimensions, the deep social security, the national security dimensions. We're going to look at some of the leadership storytelling methods and even artistic methods. For example, when Margherita Turanani presents her course, she's going to show you some pictures. And for the students in the class, pay a little bit of attention to how you respond to the professors when we talk about these things in relation to some of the pictures you're going to see. And you're not going to get the same reaction. And if we're going to relate to the emotional intelligence as well as the analytic intelligence, we're going to need a broader range of methods than is typically used in a purely analytic situation. We're also going to look at win-win methods. And there's enormous opportunities for sustainability that also have all kinds of other benefits also. And it doesn't have to be sacrifice is the only alternative to sustainability. It can improve both quantitatively and qualitatively our lives. We're going to be looking at teams. How do you manage teams? How do you form teams? These problems are too big for one person to do, even in an organizational setting. We have to work together with other people. How do we do that? When the ethics inform the politics and the politics informs the laws, that's a great start. But there's going to be massive deviation and even corruption from those standards. So how do we work with things like compliance systems and even whistleblowing methods when we have too many deviations from our policies and our ideals? For this to last, we have to have alternative governance structures. How do we build constituencies in organizations and institutions that are going to be concerned about these issues? We're going to have to look at social movement methods. These problems are not just bigger than individuals and not just bigger than organizations, but they're bigger than institutions, and individuals and organizations and institutions have to work together. How do we organize those kinds of activities? And somewhat paradoxically, even though sustainability has to do with continuity, very often you need alternative institutions like Venice International University. In order to maintain the continuity, we have to build alternative institutions, and the whole area of social and ethical entrepreneurship is very important. Now, the second course becomes even more specialized in terms of the nitty-gritty implementation kinds of things. What we're going to look at in the negotiating conflict resolution is, first of all, how do we resist those adversarial win-lose kinds of trends that Gabriela was talking about? All right? And then, how do we move from resisting and stopping the win-lose kinds of zero-sum and negative-sum behaviors to creating the kind of win-win solutions? And then, how do we move even further from that, where conflict is not just a bad thing that needs to be suppressed, but becomes the source of our creativity, where the difference becomes the source, where the dialogue among the differences becomes the source of the creativity. How do we do that in the negotiations? And then we're going to look at alternative dispute resolution methods. How do we create institutions and methods to try to solve what appear to be the intractable problems between individuals, and even sometimes the intractable problems between institutional logics? How do we use some of these third-party methods to do those kinds of things? But we're also going to pay attention to the nitty-gritty of power. Aristotle said long ago that the student of ethics must apply himself to politics. If we leave it at the cognitive level, it's just not enough to understand the problems. We have to build the political coalitions and the power in order to make these changes, to make a better world for all of us. And so that's what we'll be doing in my courses, and I'm looking forward to working with the students and the other professors, and hopefully some of the people from the various institutions in Venice to integrate with our students and our courses as well. So thank you again for the wonderful opportunity to be here. Thank you.